Consciousness raising, a constant change of the heart. Feminists are made, not born. One does not become an advocate of feminist politics simply by having the privilege of having been born female. Like all political positions, one becomes a believer in feminist politics through choice and action. When women first organized in groups to talk together about the issue of sexism and male domination, they were clear that females were as socialized to believe sexist thinking and values as males. The difference being simply that males benefited from sexism more than females, and were, as a consequence, less likely to want to surrender patriarchal privilege. Before women could change patriarchy, we had to change ourselves. We had to raise our consciousness. Revolutionary feminist consciousness raising emphasized the importance of learning about patriarchy as a system of domination, how it became institutionalized, and how it is perpetuated and maintained. Understanding the way male domination and sexism was expressed in everyday life created awareness in women of the ways we were victimized, exploited, and, in worst-case scenarios, oppressed. Early on in contemporary feminist movement, consciousness-raising groups often became settings where women simply unleashed pent-up hostility and rage about being victimized, with little or no focus on strategies of intervention and transformation. On a basic level, many hurt and exploited women used the consciousness-raising group therapeutically. It was the site where they uncovered and openly revealed the depths of their intimate wounds. This confessional aspect served as a healing ritual. Through consciousness raising, women gained the strength to challenge patriarchal forces at work and at home. Importantly, though, the foundation of this work began with women examining sexist thinking and creating strategies where we would change our attitudes and belief via a conversion to feminist thinking and a commitment to feminist politics. Fundamentally, the consciousness-raising group was a site for conversion. To build a mass-based feminist movement, women needed to organize. The consciousness-raising session, which usually took place in someone's home rather than in public space that had to be rented or donated, was the meeting place. It was the place where seasoned feminist thinkers and activists could recruit new converts. Importantly, communication and dialogue was a central agenda at the consciousness-raising sessions. In many groups, a policy was in place which honored everyone's voice. Women took turns speaking to make sure everyone would be heard. This attempt to create a non-hierarchical model for discussion positively gave every woman a chance to speak, but often did not create a context for engaged dialogue. However, in most instances, discussion and debate occurred, usually after everyone had spoken at least once. Argumentative discussion was common in consciousness-raising groups, as it was the way we sought to clarify our collective understanding of the nature of male domination. Only through discussion and disagreement could we begin to find a realistic standpoint on gender exploitation and oppression. As feminist thinking, which emerged first in the context of small groups where individuals often knew each other, they may have worked together and/or were friends, began to be theorized in printed matter so as to reach a wider audience, groups dismantled. The creation of women's studies as an academic discipline provided another setting where women could be informed about feminist thinking and feminist theory. Many of the women who spearheaded the introduction of women's studies classes into colleges and universities have been radical activists in civil rights struggles, gay rights, and early feminist movement. Many of them did not have doctorates, which meant they entered academic institutions receiving lower pay and working longer hours than their colleagues in other disciplines. By the time younger graduate students joined the effort to legitimize feminist scholarship in the academy, we knew that it was important to gain higher degrees. Most of us saw our commitment to women's studies as a political action. We were prepared to sacrifice in order to create an academic base for feminist movement. By the late 70s, women's studies was on its way to becoming an accepted academic discipline. This triumph overshadowed the fact that many of the women who had paved the way for the institutionalization of women's studies were fired because they had master's degrees and not doctorates. While some of us returned to graduate school to get PhDs, some of the best and brightest among us did not, because they were utterly disillusioned with the university and burnt out from overwork, as well as disappointed and enraged that the radical politics undergirding women's studies was being replaced by liberal reformism. Before too long, the women's studies classroom had replaced the free-for-all consciousness-raising group, whereas women from various backgrounds, those who work solely as housewives or in service jobs, and big-time professional women could be found in diverse consciousness-raising groups. The academy was and remains a site of class privilege. Privileged white middle-class women who were a numeric majority, though not necessarily the radical leaders of contemporary feminist movement, often gained prominence because they were the group mass media focused on as representatives of the struggle. Women with revolutionary feminist consciousness, many of them lesbian and from working class backgrounds, often lost visibility as the movement received mainstream attention. Their displacement became complete once women's studies became entrenched in colleges and universities, which are conservative corporate structures. Once the women's studies classroom replaced the consciousness-raising group as the primary site for the transmission of feminist thinking and strategies for social change, the movement lost its mass-based potential. Suddenly, more and more women began to either call themselves feminists or use the rhetoric of gender discrimination to change their economic status. The institutionalization of feminist studies created a body of jobs both in the world of the academy and in the world of publishing. These career-based changes led to forms of career opportunism, wherein women who had never been politically committed to mass-based feminist struggle adopted the stance and jargon of feminism when it enhanced their class mobility. The dismantling of consciousness-raising groups all but erased the notion that one had to learn about feminism and make an informed choice about embracing feminist politics to become a feminist advocate. Without the consciousness-raising group as a site where women confronted their own sexism towards other women, the direction of feminist movement could shift to a focus on equality in the workforce and confronting male domination. With heightened focus on the construction of a woman as a victim of gender equality deserving of reparations, whether through changes in discriminatory laws or affirmative action policies, the idea that women needed to first confront their internalized sexism as part of becoming feminist lost currency. Females of all ages acted as though concern for or rage at male domination or gender equality was all that was needed to make one a feminist. Without confronting internalized sexism, women who picked up the feminist banner often betrayed the cause in their interactions with other women. By the early 80s, the evocation of a politicized sisterhood, so crucial at the onset of the feminist movement, lost meaning as the terrain of radical feminist politics was overshadowed by a lifestyle-based feminism which suggested any woman could be a feminist no matter what her political beliefs. Needless to say, such thinking has undermined feminist theory and practice, feminist politics. When feminist movement renews itself, reinforcing again and again the strategies that will enable a mass movement to end sexism and sexist exploitation and oppression for everyone, consciousness raising will once again attain its original importance. Effectively imitating the model of AA meetings, feminist consciousness raising groups will take place in communities, offering the message of feminist thinking to everyone, irrespective of class, race, or gender. While specific groups based on shared identities might emerge, at the end of every month, individuals will be in mixed groups. Feminist consciousness raising for males is as essential to revolutionary movement as female groups. Had there been an emphasis on groups for males that taught boys and men about what sexism is and how it can be transformed, it would have been impossible for mass media to portray the movement as anti-male. It would also have preempted the formation of an anti-feminist men's movement. Often, Men's groups were formed in the wake of contemporary feminism that in no way addressed the issues of sexism and male domination. Like the lifestyle-based feminism aimed at women, these groups often became therapeutic settings for men to confront their wounds without a critique of patriarchy or a platform of resistance to male domination. Future feminist movement will not make this mistake. Males of all ages need settings where their resistance to sexism is affirmed and valued. Without males as allies in struggle, feminist movement will not progress. As it is, we have to do so much work to correct the assumption deeply embedded in the cultural psyche that feminism is anti-male. Feminism is anti-sexism. A male who has divested of male privilege, who has embraced feminist politics, is a worthy comrade in struggle, in no way a threat to feminism. Whereas a female who remains wedded to sexist thinking and behavior, infiltrating feminist movement, is a dangerous threat. Significantly, the most powerful intervention made by consciousness-raising groups was the demand that all females confront their internalized sexism, their allegiance to patriarchal thinking and action, and their commitment to feminist conversion. That intervention is still needed. It remains the necessary step for anyone choosing feminist politics. The enemy within must be transformed before we can confront the enemy outside. The threat, the enemy, is sexist thought and behavior. As long as females take up the banner of feminist politics without addressing and transforming their own sexism, ultimately the movement will be undermined.